Well, hello there, everybody. Apparently, I hit a button on my computer, so you missed the intro. Oh, well. Hopefully, everybody's doing well out there tonight, and everybody is safe from the storms. I know there's still some more headed into Georgia and such. So please, everybody, be safe. Hopefully, everybody is okay um, and their families are doing well. Also, in case you didn't know, yesterday was Gold Star Spouses Day. So that is a day to remember, respect, and honor of those Gold Star spouses. And of course, think about the sacrifice that they as well had to deal with and the loss of their loved ones. So, thank you to them and, the resiliency all around. So, appreciate everybody and everybody who's popped on so far. We have a Jim. Hello, welcome. Yes, be safe with the weather. So, I have a great guest who's waiting in the wings, and a huge, huge thank you for him be coming on today. And there's a lot of things that are happening out there in the world of veterans every day. There's something from Mind Overland. So you can check them out. They're going to hopefully be having this Veterans Day coming up in November. They'll hopefully have the area restored that was damaged in North Carolina in the Blue Ridge Mountains for their annual Veterans Day event, which is for veterans, their families, and veteran supporters as well. And it's usually a full weekend. So there's some overlanding and such as well. So you can check them out, mindoverland.org. It's all volunteer. They do such a great job and some wonderful people. So if you have that opportunity, check it out. It's absolutely free for the veterans. And then camping, of course, is free. They do have food that comes in. Generally, a lot of food trucks that come in on Saturday. They have several giveaways. It's a really great time. So check that out. So okay, so without further ado, allow me to introduce to you my guest and Air Force veteran, Rebel.
How you doing,
Hello.
Carly?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm still breathing.
That's always a plus, right? When we can roll over, wake up, and take that morning breath of air.
Yes, absolutely.
So, thank you so much. It's an honor to have you on the channel to have a
Honored to be here.
conversation, and it's going to be a fun night. I know it. I feel it. So, let's start. Let's start with what I usually will ask. So, the first question that I usually ask is for you to tell me a little bit about who Little Rebel was as a child.
I was born in a small city in Michigan called Port Huron, Michigan. I was the third child from my mother. So being the youngest, it was I was always the one that was bullied during my childhood. I have an older brother and an older sister. Yeah, my father wasn't really in the picture. He left after I was born, um, roughly about 8 days after. So growing up, it was basically my sister and my brother that I kind of like bonded to or tried to bond to. And yeah, we lived in that small city. It's gotten bigger since, but we've lived there for quite a few years. And then we moved to a very, very small town called Peck, Michigan. Um,
Okay.
like a village, maybe 1,000 people total. It was bad, very
Oh,
small,
wow.
very
Okay.
country living. Yep.
Nice.
Um,
Jim
so
says thank
then
you for your service, by the way.
I appreciate that. Thank you so much for your support. Um, yeah, got into sports at a young age, about 8 years old. Started getting into like sports, baseball and whatnot. Became a
What
huge
position did you play
baseball
with baseball?
fan. Mostly shortstop in my younger years, and then outfield in my older, and like closer to high school.
Okay. All right. And what other
So
sports did you play?
I like to play a lot of hockey. Being from Michigan, you can't not play hockey. It's like against the rules. So, um, yeah, I played a lot of hockey on frozen ponds, stuff like that. Um, Definitely a good time there. But being in a small area of the middle of the thumb, um, there's not really a whole lot of um, venues for you to go to like
Right,
skate. So you had to
right.
wait until the winter. Other than that, during the summer, you'd play roller hockey, and that's kind of like where we spent most of our time is on the roller hockey court. So,
Nice,
um,
nice. So
yep.
you were able to build up stamina then. So
Oh
that's
yeah, absolutely.
the start of it, right?
Yep.
Okay. Did you go to
Um,
college or
no, actually, so at about 14, I want to say I was like 14, my grandfather passed away, and the only thing, I mean, he was the father of seven daughters.
oh,
Um, yeah, even his dog was a girl, so he didn't have any boys in the house. Um, so his only request when I just before he passed, he said, hey, if you have nothing going for you by the time you're 20, do me a favor and just join one of the services. So, and I remembered that all through my high school career or high school years, um, that I really didn't have a plan of what I wanted to do. I tried to be a mechanic for a while. Did a couple years of that. Did a year um, of being a general laborer, and I just couldn't get my feet anywhere where I was happy. I never felt truly at home. I always felt out of place.
okay.
And so when I was 20 years old, I decided to follow my grandfather's advice, and I went and signed up for the military.
What made you decide to go with the branch that you went into?
Um, Ultimately, it was the branch. I went into the Air Force because one, I wanted to do 6 years and get out. And at the time, the Michigan State Police were not hiring anybody under the age of 25. And they said, if you're going to go into one of the services to be a cop, go into the Air Force. They have one of the best police programs in the military branches. So that was really
Okay.
why I went to the Air Force.
Okay, because you wanted to be a cop.
Yeah, my goal was to do 6 years, be 26 when I get out of the military, go back to Michigan, be a state trooper. That was the original plan.
Those are great goals. There's
Yeah.
nothing wrong with that.
Yep. So,
So your mom,
yeah.
when you tell her you know what you want to do, and did you sign first or did you talk to her first?
So I went to the recruiter's office, talked to them, and got a bunch of information and came back home and told my mom, this is what I'm going to do. And she said, are you sure? And I said, yeah. And the very next day, I went and signed up as long because she said that she didn't have a problem with it. She was like, this was in 2000. So nothing, we weren't at war or anything like that. So she was absolutely all for it. And so yeah, went the very next morning and told my recruiter to go ahead and sign me up. So
Nice. Nice. And it's great that you've got that support at home, right?
yeah,
Um, did you talk to your siblings about that?
no, I didn't actually talk to my siblings about any. My older brother and older sister. I mean, I was 20 years old. I was still living at home. They had already moved out for quite a few years, but I mean, my brother was gone out of the house for like 3 years before that, and my sister like six before I
Yeah.
signed up. So there was no real conversations for them. It was more just hey, this is what I did. So
After the fact, right?
yep, after the fact, yeah.
And that's quite all right. So you sign on the dotted line. How long from the time you sign to the time you get your ship date for basic training?
So I signed up in February of 2000, and April 12th of 2000 I was in San Antonio going through basic training. So
Wow.
I
That's
took
pretty
the
quick.
quickest, yeah, I wanted the quickest date possible. I didn't want any chance to decide that I was going to back out of it. I was dating who would end up being my first wife at the time, and she was not as happy about my decisions, but ultimately it was my decision. I had to do it. It was something
That's
that
right.
I felt I needed to do. So
That's right. And we thank you for that. So you get I don't know much as far as, the ins and outs for the Air Force. Do they have yellow footprints also, kind of like the Marine Corps does?
no, not really. You when you first get there, um, it's kind of like a culture shock. I got because I was expecting we got to San Antonio International Airport and I was expecting, I should say, to get off the plane, be able to get my bags, and then get over to the Air Force Base and check in.
Right.
But that is not what happened. We started getting yelled at the minute we got off that plane. They have a whole baggage claim section that's just for military members or prospective military members, and all the basic training instructors are there yelling at you from the moment you get off the plane to, move your ass and get your bag, get in line, and
So you
it,
guys get an airplane and they meet you at the plane.
oh
Where
yeah,
like,
like well at the
our
terminal, yeah,
yeah, and everybody else gets the gets a bus ride.
right. So we like I said, I flew
Oh,
Southwest, I think it was. I think my plane was a Southwest aircraft. So
oh
we're
my
thinking
gosh.
it's a civilian aircraft. This is going to be great. No, no. As soon as we got off that plane, there are like military members this way, and then they just started yelling at us right from the get go. And it was like, what did I do? The start of it.
So, alleged doctor, thank you so much for being here today
I
and
appreciate that.
supporting Rebel.
I appreciate it, alleged. Thank you.
So, okay. So obviously, yes, culture shock. Lots of screaming.
Yep.
And are they called drill instructors there?
They're TIs, training instructors.
Training instructors. Okay. So the training instructors, they kind of shock you right off the get-go.
Yes.
And then from there they take you then to the base.
Yes. You after you get your baggage from the baggage claim area that they have set up, you'll jump on a military bus and then you ride on that bus ride from San Antonio to the base. And during that time frame, you're just sitting there quiet because you don't even know. Like for me, I'm like, are we allowed to talk? Are we allowed to, complete culture shock of everything because you still have that guy with the Smoking the Bear hat sitting in the front. So it's like the most quietest ride. And it was like, I think 20 to 25-minute bus ride. And I could see it all I know it was in my face, but I'm pretty sure I saw it in other people's faces. Oh, what the hell did I do? This was a bad idea. So,
Right. Anytime somebody starts, in your face, yelling, screaming, the defenses come up. So
yep,
you want to, that fight or flight mode kind of kicks in. So yeah, but you stuck it out. So you get there, you get off that bus,
yep.
and I'm assuming, tell me what's the receiving, at least for you, what was receiving like where, you went through all of
So the first
that?
we got there at like I want to say it was like close to 11:30 p.m. So it is pretty late at night. And we were thinking, we're going to get into the base, we're going to get a place to sleep, and we're going to get some sleep. And once again, that was the error of my thinking, um, because there was so much more for in processing that I realized that when you first get there, they're going to assign you to a squadron, they're going to assign you to a TI, and you're just going to basically go um, from there getting yelled at. By the way, alleged doctor is actually a good friend of mine, and Carafire is my younger adopted sister. So,
Well, hello, welcome. Thank you so much. If y'all haven't already, be sure to like and subscribe, please, please.
so we were there, and I want to say that we were just getting our bag searched by canine, the military canine go through with their drug dogs, having them sniff every single baggage. Um, and then I think I got to my basic training squadron, um, probably around 4:30 a.m. And I'm thinking, okay, finally, I'm going to get some sleep. No, no. Again, that was where I went wrong with my thinking. The first thing we had to do was we had to go in and clean it. And we did cleaning drills for the next 3 hours. So,
Oh, wow.
yep. So that the whole first night or first day, we got no sleep. And it was just by the time 4:30, 5 o'clock in the afternoon comes around, you're so dog tired because you've been up for well over 24 hours
Mhm.
and you haven't even totally understood what you're getting yourself into. And the only thing you're allowed to drink at this point is water. That's it. No caffeine, no nothing. Um, so yeah, that first day was probably one of my most miserable days that I can remember. The cleaning drills were not fun because you don't get a rag or anything like that. You're using flip flops to basically get the dust all up into the center of the room, and then you sweep it up and you throw that away, and then you go round two, and you just keep doing it until the instructor's happy. So
Wow.
yeah,
At this stage, did you learn how to make a bed and all of
we
that?
didn't.
Or
Yeah, we didn't actually learn how to make a bed until the next day. So we literally slept with just what we had. And so the next morning we started with all right, here's how you're going to make a bed. And we're going to show you how to do hospital corners. And we're going to show you how to get the bed as tight as possible. And mind you, you're in San Antonio in April. And the only blankets they have are the military wool blankets that are heavy and
yeah,
hot and miserable and furry and scratchy. So it,
the olive drab. Yeah.
yep,
Yeah.
yep. So it, I want to say that my first 2 or 3 days there was miserable, and there was numerous times that I was wondering, should I just drop out? Should I just go home? Um,
And what
but
kept you there?
my word to my grandfather. That's the only thing that really stopped me from even doing any of that was um, I had made my grandfather that promise that I would do that, and I was damn determined to get through it. Not to mention that my girlfriend at the time, who was my first wife, we weren't married yet, but her family were taking bets how long I would last in basic
Oh.
training.
You
So,
know, I have a feeling that there are a lot of military individuals whose families have done the same thing,
oh, I'm sure
right? I mean, yeah, yeah.
it seems to be a common theme.
Yes, I think so. So the first day you're exhausted. What time do you recall finally get to bed?
We had lights out by 9 o'clock, but most of us we had like a free like you had I think from 7 p.m. till 9 p.m. to write a letter, because this was before cell phones. So you'd be able to write a letter to home saying, "Hey, I made it, whatever, la la la."
Okay, so you
Most
didn't get a phone call home.
Not yet, no, not in the first
Okay.
day. We didn't get that till the second day, um, and I don't think a whole lot of us actually wrote. I think a lot of us just kind of laid in bed and hoped that we didn't get yelled at for falling asleep early.
Yeah. So Purifier says, just like you to get through due to spite and
Yeah,
honor, obviously.
yeah, she knows me well.
Grit, determination. By gosh, nobody's going to tell me what I can and cannot do. So, okay. So you write your letter and then you finally get some sleep.
Yeah, I think I fell asleep probably about 7:30, and
Wow.
then I'm thinking, okay, I don't know what time we're getting up. And that first wake up of having Reveille played,
And they
I
play right there in the barracks?
Oh yeah, yeah, they have a loudspeaker that they play it right over, and it if you don't have an alarm clock, don't worry, it'll wake you up.
It reminds
Um,
me of the did you ever see the, TV series MASH?
Absolutely. Yep.
Right? And you hear it coming over the loudspeaker?
Yep.
Yeah.
And so they have a loudspeaker actually in the barracks with you, and yeah, it's they turn that thing up full blast, and it is, yeah, very miserable. You wake up to that, and our wake up was 5 a.m. every morning, and it was absolutely miserable because none of us felt like we had enough sleep. And the first thing you do is you get up, you go, get your PT gear on, and you go out and you do PT. And um, I don't think most of us was even ready to even start moving till like 9 a.m.
I feel bad sometimes for the the training, um, individuals as well as, the DIs, the instructors, because they know, right? They've gotta be able to meld this group of individuals into one entity, so to speak,
Absolutely, yeah,
and they have to do it every so many weeks.
yep. And for us, like looking back at it, knowing what I know now, I completely understood the reasoning behind it. They have to break you down to your very foundations, is what it is. Because, you and I might go to the same basic training course, and you might have been raised differently with different values. They need to break you down to your foundation so they can build the values that they need to instill into you from that point forward. And
Right.
so that's exactly what they're trying to do. I don't know how well it's going these days. I know in 2000, before everything went to hell in a handbasket, it was pretty effective. I think that everybody that we graduated with in basic training pretty much had the same values by the time we were done.
Right. Right.
So
And that to me makes perfect sense. Shout out to Jova Q. Thank you for being here tonight. We really appreciate seeing you. So, all right. Um, you though talked about the fact that you were in sports.
yeah,
So that had to have helped you with your PT, right?
nope,
I would assume. Not at all?
not at all.
Oh.
Um, and the reason why is because I was doing PT in Michigan. I was doing sports in Michigan. I was not
Instead of,
prepared
yes, the
for the thick
humidity and the
humidity, hot air of San Antonio, Texas. I mean, at that point, I had been out of state only a few times, to
okay.
like Wisconsin and Illinois. Never traveled outside the Midwest. Um, I think the furthest south at that point I had gone was Sandusky, Ohio, to go to Cedar Point. So no, I was not ready for the humidity and the heat that San Antonio, Texas, put on me. And so at that time, it was you had to run 2 miles in under 18 minutes, and for our PT test. I think the first time we ran, I might have ran it in 23 or 24 minutes, and I was thinking, oh man, I'm going to fail because it was
Oh.
so hot and thick
Where
that it
were you in the pack though?
um it was kind of like it was funny because we had, I want to say, 60 people in our barracks. And I want to say there was like three different groups. There was people that were in the front that were good runners, and there was maybe 5, 10 of them. And then there was a bunch of people in the middle, about 20, and then the rest were in the back. I was in that back with
How far
everybody else.
back of the back?
Um, Probably in the middle of it. So
Okay, so not bad.
it was not good, but it wasn't bad. I mean,
It could have been worse.
it could have. And my goal the whole time was just don't finish dead last. Don't be the one
Right.
that gets beat by everybody else.
Yeah, yes, exactly.
Yep.
So, all right. Um, so what did they have like phases that you had to go through? Like, this week you did this week you did that.
Not really. During that time frame, it was basically getting everything issued to you, and then you would start going through basic education of the military or of the Air Force, the history, um, the standards, the conduct, the expectations, the lot of marching, because
Commands that like who is in, the command order and
yeah, yeah, absolutely. Your chain of command and all that was definitely needed to be. I mean, you went through all of that, recognizing ranks of other branches. Um, they even went as far as we had. I mean, our basic training is not as nearly as bad as like the Marines or the Army, and but a lot of it is mental in the Air Force. It's they will mess you up mentally by checking to see how much you know about the stupidest things that at the time you're thinking is stupid, like why do I need to know this, and then years later you're using that information because you're going for a promotion testing and you're like, oh, I remember that from basic training.
right. And it's
So,
continuing, it's repetition too when you're in boot camp, right?
mhm,
So that it really does stick in your head.
yeah,
So, um, funny stories. What do you have any funny stories from basic training that you can
i
share?
have a I do have a lot of funny stories. Actually,
Well, let's hear a few.
we had this one kid. He was really skinny, couldn't make his bed very well. um, Absolutely hated trying to keep his bed made. And he was a toss and turner. And so the one night that one of our TIs came in to inspect, um, they came upon his bed and he wasn't in it. They're like, um, where is this guy? Is he a sick call? No. They had no clue where this guy was. They checked the bathrooms, they checked everywhere. Turns out the kid was actually in his locker, sleeping in his locker because he did not want to mess up his bed. So it was
Wow. Like he was sleeping like the foot locker or a stand-up locker?
his stand-up locker. He was sleeping in
Oh
that
my gosh.
just because he refused to mess up his bed.
Oh
And
my gosh. I
I,
I bet they
I
thought he went AWOL for a moment.
we there was a moment of scariness there. So we also had these little tags. They were called 341s, and you could get a 341 pulled for good things or bad things. And if you got a certain amount of 341s pulled, you would be washed back and you would have to do that week over again. So you wouldn't be with your original. And so he had numerous 341s pulled for horrible stuff. I only had one pulled the whole time I was there. Um, I was on what they call guard duty, and we had people that were coming back from lunch. And one of the TIs, Master Sergeant Obi,
It's
decided to pound
amazing
on.
how nobody forgets their master sergeants
Oh,
anymore.
yeah, I know, right? So Master Sergeant Obi was kind of trying to sneak into my dorm, into our barrack area, and one of the guys that was coming back from our mealtime, he pounds on the door. So I open the window and I'm like, "Dorm guard, dorm A6. How may I help you?" And then they put their military ID up there, and you're one green military ID card, senior or airman so and so, and you would check it and make sure that they were on the list to be able to come in. And when I opened the door, because he was authorized to come in, Master Sergeant Obi grabbed the door, ripped it open, and tried to come in. And he starts yelling at me, and I just like, ah! And I took off running. And
I'm sorry. That's funny.
mind you, that I want to explain that Master Sergeant Obi was a very big man. He was 6'3" and about 260 pounds of pure muscle. I mean, he was
How
featured in.
big were you at this time?
I was maybe 5'11", 135 pounds, maybe
Oh,
140.
wow.
Yeah, I was. It was wow. Um, so Master Sarnobi was just. He was a very big guy, very intimidating,
Yeah, I
and
guess.
so I ran out the fire escape and down the stairs, and he chased after me the whole way, and I ran back up the stairs because me being 200 pounds lighter than him, I was able to outrun him, and I got up the stairs, hurried up, pounded on the door, Guy hurries up and lets me in because he sees it's me, and I hurry up and slam the door just as Master Sergeant Obi gets to the door, and then he pounds on the door and he's like, "Let me in!" And I was like, "Sir, do you have a military ID card?"
It reminds me of like the little three little pigs, right? And
Yeah.
he like pound, let me in or I'll blow your house down.
I literally thought I was getting washed back. I thought I was going, I was like, oh, I'm in so much trouble. And
Oh my gosh.
I finally he does the process and he comes in the dorm and he said, "Give me a 341 right now." And I was like, "Here you go." So I give it to him and he's just like, "You at least got me out of the dorm and that's a good thing." And he just walked off and I was like, "The hell?"
Oh, that's funny. That's one of the funniest stories I've heard in a while.
Yeah, it was,
That's
it was,
crazy.
it
I'm
was
just
definitely a
envisioning
statement.
this in my head, right? I just like this great big bear trying to
Pretty much, yeah.
come through. That's hilarious.
No,
All
he
right.
was intimidating as hell.
So, how long was basic training for you?
For me at that time, it was 6 weeks. I think they've recently increased it to longer, but it was only 6 weeks. Um, because the Air Force at the time, they were more concerned about you learning your specific task more than learning basic stuff. So a lot of your education came in your follow-on school, which we called tech school.
Okay.
And so come graduation on basic training, I'm expecting, everybody's going to get on a bus, go wherever they need to go because the training's at different bases. I did not realize that my chosen profession of security forces was at Lackland Air Force Base, and it was literally 2 blocks away. So
So you had did not have far at all to go.
no,
I was
and
gonna ask you what your MOS was. So,
yeah,
okay, security forces. All right.
yep. So we call them AFSCs, Air Force Specialty Codes, is what we call them. And yeah, I was 3PO71, or well, actually 3POX1. The 5 or 7 is basically your level. So I was 3POX1, which is security forces, and I did not know that my technical school was only 2 blocks away. So we all stayed up late that night after basic training, graduation, just packing up our stuff, having a good time, BSing, telling funny stories that, the things people did, only to find out that 5 o'clock in the morning, I'm getting on a bus and going 2 blocks away and starting my next entry. I did not make the best of decisions at 20, obviously.
Did you see that master sergeant or master the gunny after that?
Uh, Master Sergeant Obi, no, I did not see him after that because
Okay. I was
he
curious.
was no, he moved on and got another flight and started pushing them, so I didn't actually get to see him again. So,
Okay.
um,
So what
but
was it like for you during your training there?
so technical school was a lot more in depth. It was mostly field training, um, basically going through and learning how to do patrols, how to read maps, how to read compasses, um, basically basic ranger stuff. Very little law enforcement. I only had like 2 weeks of law enforcement training there, and the rest was completely filled with security and ranger patrols.
Oh,
Um,
wow. Okay.
yeah,
Okay.
so it is very thick on that aspect. So the career fields used to be split. Security forces actually used to be two different career fields. You had the security police, and then you had air police. And the security police would do all of the security for aircraft, awesome weapons, and then air police would do your law enforcement mission. And then in 1997, they merged the two career fields into one. And so 3 years later, I'm going through basic training, and they still hadn't worked out all the kinks of how they were going to do their technical school. So it was heavily security and ranger patrolling, and very little law enforcement. And I specifically remember going, man, we're doing all this for, like, what's the chances of us ever being in a war anytime soon? Seriously, we don't need to do all this type of training. Let's get more law enforcement. Little did I know what was going to come, a
What was
year
right
after.
around the corner.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
So, excuse me, did you in basic or in your tech school, did you guys have to handle firearms
Oh,
and
absolutely. Yeah.
marksmans and
So in basic, you fire your, at the time it was an M16, you fire it once. Um,
once
and
is all you
then
get?
you're only there for 6 weeks. So you only fire once.
Okay.
Um, and then when you get to tech school, it's a lot more. You're pretty much handling M16s. I was also a 60 gunner, so I was handling the M60 daily. Then there was others that were having like 249s, 203s, and they were handling all of that daily, because it is very heavy, weapons oriented. So yeah, it's more in your tech school that you get a lot of that, training if you were in a combat career field. If you weren't in a combat career field, if you went to be a Air Force chef, as like they like to be called, um, obviously you're not going to handle a firearm very often there.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, going back to security forces, can you
Yeah.
tell the people watching what generally that entails? And I ask that
Yeah.
my oldest, I've got 2 Marine veterans, and my
Right.
oldest actually became an instructor for security forces with the Marine Corps. So,
Right. So security forces in the Air Force is the security and law enforcement missions on the installation, and they do everything from securing your, um, PL level one resources, we'll call them, big boom weapons, um, to securing aircraft, to securing bunkers that may have, weapons in it, such as, uh, armament for backup forces, stuff like that. Um, and then you have your law enforcement side that they do all of the gates, where they're controlling entry and exit to the
similar to
installation.
an MP.
Yep, pretty much like an MP. They also do law enforcement patrols. They'll do, basically military working dog. They handle all that. We also do confinement. So anybody that is, waiting trial or has been, um, found guilty but is getting less than a year of confinement, will usually stay in the confinement facility at the installation they're at. Anything over a year, they usually ship you to a, Miramar or, um, Leavenworth, somewhere like that.
Right.
Um, so they do that. Yeah, I know, Kim.
So I'll interrupt momentarily. So Curifier says, "How many times did you lecture me in high school about calling you guys MPs?"
Yep. So yeah,
There's similarities. I agree.
yeah, we absolutely loathe being called MPs because we're
Right.
not. We're security forces. It's
But
different
it really is similar, right? In
to
what it
some
is
degrees. Yeah.
that yeah, there's a lot of similarities. Now, of course, there's a lot of differences too, but
Yep.
to help bridge that gap between military branch to military branch, you
It's probably
know,
the best way. Yeah.
yeah, there's a lot of similarities. And that's why I always find it humorous when each branch picks at the other branch.
Oh yeah. We enjoy doing that. It's, as
Yes.
I told others, is that we can pick on each other, but God forbid you pick on us and you didn't serve. We'll just come together.
Right.
So
Exactly. Exactly. All right, and you go through your tech school. How long was that?
that was like 3 months, three and a half. Well, no, 4 months. So I
Longer
went
than your
there.
basic training. Okay.
Yeah, I went there at the end of April or May, first part of May, and I graduated at the end of August. So,
Okay.
and that's when I actually, and that's when in the Air Force, that's when you become officially active duty or permanent party is what we refer to it as.
Okay. Now, through this, you're finally, I'm assuming, starting to get acclimated to the humidity and
Yep.
yeah. So obviously, you've gotten your scores up, physical
Yep.
fitness testing, all that stuff, everything's moving right along.
Yep.
Um, After tech school, did you have other training that you had to do?
Everything else was every other training that you do is handled by whatever first duty station that you go to. Now you so once you get there, they can send you to another school, which I did many. But your first duty after tech school is to sign in at your first duty station.
And where was your first duty station?
Kirtland Air Force Base, Albuquerque, New Mexico.
Wow, that is night and day as far as, humidity and just visually.
Yeah.
Oh, that's crazy.
Yep.
Okay. And how long were you there for?
I was there for about 3.5, almost 4 years.
That's a long time.
Yep.
So even then, okay, so when you went to your primary duty station, what time frame was that?
That was about middle of September of 2000
Okay.
is when I got
So
there.
you had to hang out there even after 9/11.
Yeah,
And
9/11 messed up a lot. Yep.
yeah, yeah. So, okay. So were you itching to like say, let us in, coach?
So when I first got there, when I first got to Kirtland Air Force Base, it was higher altitude, which I wasn't used to.
Yeah. Yeah, it's
Um,
a lot. What it was, I don't know what that is. If it's, I
about
know it's,
3,000 feet.
yeah, I was going to say, because I think Nevada is 32.
Yeah. I went from Michigan being at 200 feet to Texas or San Antonio, which is like pretty much sea level, to 3,000 feet. Um, and a lot of us were just kind of just doing the job and not expecting anything. And we were just kind of trying to get whatever certifications we could. So when I got to the base, you can get certified as flight line security, WSA, or CUMSEC is what we call it because it stands for Kirtland Underground Munitions Maintenance Storage Complex. Everything we do is in acronyms.
Right.
And or
But
you
with
could,
a title like that, it makes sense.
yeah, and then or you could get certified out on the gates as a young airman because they will not put you up for patrol as a brand new airman to the base. They're not going to put you on a patrol. You're hopefully first step towards law enforcement mission, which is what everybody wanted at the time. Is I want the law enforcement. I want the law enforcement. So the best way was to go to the gates and get gate certified. So that's what I did. I went to the gates and we had an elite gate section, and absolutely rocked that for up to September 11th.
Okay. And then, so, okay, you've gone through all of that. September 11 hits, and what's going on, and if, how was it told to you that happened?
So I was working the Truman Gate. I was the gate leader at Truman Gate for Kirtland Air Force Base, and so we had two people out on the gate. One person would be inside writing passes for vehicles if they didn't have a DD Form 2220, which was the sticker on the window, and the other person would be out waving traffic of just basic.
Yeah.
So throwing in a salute every once in a while when it was a blue sticker. Um, and as I'm waving traffic, a car comes up and stops and says, "Hey, did you hear what happened?" And I said, "No." He goes, "An aircraft flew into the World Trade Center." And I said, like a Cessna? And he's like, I don't know. There's not a whole lot of details. And I'm like, oh, okay. And I was like, well, thanks for the information. So we just kept, processing people on as normal. And then it was about 20 to 25 minutes later that somebody came in and said the same thing. They were like, "Hey, did you hear what just happened?" I said, "No." He's like, "An aircraft just flew into the World Trade Center." I said, "No, that happened like 25, 30 minutes ago, sir. He's like, no, a second one did.
Oh, wow.
And at that point, I knew it was an attack. And
Right.
so I called the junior member out, told him, I need you to take over traffic. And he said, why, what's going on? I said, we had 2 aircraft that flew into the World Trade Center. I got to call the desk, find out if there's anything that we need to know. So I went in and called the law enforcement desk, and I remember the guy working the law enforcement desk, Chad Prime, Senior Airman Chad Prime was working the law enforcement desk, and he says, don't bother me with your shit right now. I have so many phone calls coming in. I was like, okay. So I went to just go back to being normal, and just like, okay, I'm going to go back out and wave traffic again. And that's when over the radio, it came that we were increasing our force protection condition up to Alpha. And I was like, okay, so then I had to start getting the FP con at the time or threat condition. I'm sorry, it was called threat condition at the time. I had to go get the threat con condition signs ready and start putting them out on the gate, so that way anybody that was entering the gate would know that we were in Alpha. And by the time I went to go get that done, I got another phone call from the desk, and they said, disregard our last message, we're going to Delta. What do you mean we're going to Delta? And they said the Pentagon was hit. That changed everything.
Yeah.
So now you have this 21-year-old, very green guy that has no idea, like very good on the gates, but have very limited experience with security aspects. And this younger airman that's younger than me, we're running this gate trying to basically tell people that are like captains and majors, you can't come on. It's mission essential personnel. Well, yeah, but I'm mission essential. Okay, what is your job, sir? Well, I work at the gym handing out, doing the front. That's not mission essential. You need to, because everybody wanted to think that their job was mission essential at that point. So it got worse. And I remember after we got the Delta signs put up, we were told that there was going to be a staff sergeant coming out to the gate and he was going to take over. And I felt so much more relieved. I was like, okay, obviously I'm going to be good. This guy knows what he's doing. He's a staff sergeant. And Staff Sergeant Kevin Comer comes up to me and he goes, Rabson. I was like, sir. He's like, I don't know what I'm doing on the gate. I've never worked a gate. I'm a security troop. You're in charge. Just tell me what we need to do and I'll make sure it gets done. You got to be kidding me.
Wow.
So yeah, I mean, ultimately I ended up getting an achievement medal out of it because of my actions. Because Staff Sergeant Comer definitely wrote me a medal package because of how much he leaned on me to know what to do. But yeah, he was.
Did you tell him you made it up all by yourself and just kind of? I'm just kidding.
I to be honest, I didn't tell him that, but that was pretty much what I was doing.
And that's what it felt like, right?
Yeah, because it was like
they don't train you for that.
At that time the stateside bases hadn't been in a elevated condition like that since Vietnam, probably, maybe longer. Wow. I don't know what I'm doing. So it worked out really well. People that lived off base, if they were mission essential, they ended up having to sleep at the gym in a cot. That was pretty interesting.
And those that lived on base that wanted to leave, were they able to do so?
No, they could leave, but coming back on the base, it was restricted for quite a while. After a few days, 2 or 3 days, we were able to start getting people to be able to process in and off the base as quickly as possible. But we were having to search since we were in Delta, we had to search every vehicle that came on. Right. And I'm not talking like just a dog running around the car. I mean, we had to do a thorough search of every vehicle. It would take you 25, 30 minutes to get your to get your vehicle searched to get on base. So people just stopped going off base
Yeah.
because it was just too much trouble.
Which was the smart move. I mean, and understandably, right?
Yeah,
The whole, being prepared and making sure that everybody within those grounds are safe.
yeah.
So, um, so you hear about this, you go through the process and dealing with all of that. Where's your mind at when things that night, like, you get to take your break and, where's your mind at?
So I ended up having to go and sleep on a cot in the gym. I lived off base. And that woman that I was telling you about, that girl I was dating, she was my wife at this point. Um, she was not happy because I couldn't come home. I ended up staying 3 weeks in the gym on a cot. I worked 24 straight days.
Wow.
They gave me 1 day off to get my affairs in order, of go home, get as much laundry done as I possibly could for all my uniforms, um, and then to come back. And now, after we came back the second time, we were allowed to go home because we were getting streamlined with our searches and stuff like that. So we were allowed to go home after that. But um, so, and then I worked like 28 straight days after that.
Yeesh.
Um, the 1 day that I did come home to do everything, to get everything in order, um, my first wife had felt the need to put a POWMIA flag over my side of the bed, which I thought was pretty messed up. So,
That is really messed up.
yeah.
Holy cow. Okay.
So,
Um, so from there, how
mhm.
you've been there for 3 years thereabouts, you said?
I was there for about 3.5, 4 years. Yeah.
3.5, 4 years. So what did you do from there? Where did you head?
So that's actually a funny story because I didn't, I was hoping to get my base of preference, which you can put in for base of preference at certain points in your career. And I had hoped to get mine, but I didn't end up getting my base of preference. I actually had a individual come through the gate. He was getting a pass because he didn't have a 2220 on his car. Um, and so as I'm writing him his pass, I'm like, hey, sir, I need to see your driver's license. So he puts down his driver's license, and I saw that it was a Michigan driver's license. Um, and I was like, well, that's cool. I'm from Michigan too. And then I looked at his name, and his last name is the same as mine. And I'm like, that's a pretty interesting last name. And he's like, yeah, I see that. And I see that he's from Marysville. Marysville is like the neighboring city to Port Huron, where I was born.
Wow.
And so then he was like, I was like, I'm from Port Huron. And he just stops me and he says, who's your dad? And I was like, Cal or Reginald. He goes by either one, Calvin or Reginald. Those were his first two. And he's like, oh, okay. And then he asked me how I thought about the Air Force. And I was like, oh, I wish I could get out and see more of it. And he's like, okay, well, maybe that'll happen for you. And like 2 weeks later, I got a phone call from my military personnel flight saying I got to come in and pick orders. And I was like, oh, so I'm thinking my base of preference went in. And so I get there and they have a list of bases for me to pick from. And they said, you can choose any of these bases. And so I chose RAF Lakenheath over in Lakenheath, England. And I got an email from that colonel about a month after I got there saying, yeah, I had to get you out of my chain of command because I'm related to you.
Oh, and how was the relation?
Yep.
How was he
So
related?
he is an uncle or I'm not sure. He never actually explained how we're related, but he knew my dad. He knew my biological father. So,
Wow.
so at that point, it was I have to get you out from under my chain of command. So that's why they sent me. He got me orders, and I ended up going to England for the next
But
4
you
years.
chose it, so it could
Yeah,
have been worse,
absolutely.
right?
Oh, it was
They could have just picked something out of the hat and said, "Here you go."
absolutely fantastic base. I loved being in England. Um, Probably one of my favorite assignments. Yeah,
Nice. And how long were you there for?
4 years. Yep.
So how different? I mean, in your mind, so I know what
Mhm.
I would say, but in your mind, how different are they there in the UK versus America?
It's not much different. A lot of a lot of the Brits that I was around, they did a lot of they watched the US from the outside. Um, they were very fascinated with US culture and stuff like that. So it was
You get
very
peppered
entertaining.
with questions?
Yeah, so it was they were just basic they saw me as like the novelty act, and so um I made friends with a local Brit named Karina, and she took care of me, and she would invite me down to her family's house pretty much every other Sunday or so, twice a month for Sunday dinner, because they still do Sunday dinners pretty pretty religiously. So she took care of me, and it was a good time. So
Nice. So, okay, and did you get then to train with the Brits military force?
no, not really. Our job there was literally to secure our interest, which was some weapons that we had there that are, and then some aircraft that we had there. It's more of a base for forward movement into other hot zones. So from there, while I was there, I deployed a couple of times.
Okay.
While at RF Lakenheath, I deployed a couple of times, once to Saudi Arabia and once to Tikrit, Iraq.
So did for those places, did you get to eat the food, the local cuisine?
Oh, and in England,
In well, England, yes, I'm assuming so.
yes,
But the other 2 that you deployed
no,
to, not at all.
no.
Um, I asked that question to pretty much all of my guests because it's really interesting to hear how some of them, do. Maybe they're not supposed to, but they manage to. Others, they have a little kitchen
Yeah,
makeshift that they have. So,
there was a lot of times that you would go out and you would have the opportunity to do so, but I personally never got the opportunity to enjoy it, because I was always on missions that didn't allow that. So
yeah, yeah, and keeping you busy and away from all of it too,
yep.
I presume. So you as far as Britain goes,
Hmm.
what was there anything that you tried for the first time that we just don't have here and we're shocked?
Yes, haggis.
I guess. And how
So
was that for you?
I love it. I love haggis.
Do you?
Yeah, we went up to Scotland for a week. So a neighboring base, Mildenhall, was doing an exercise up there, and they were sending us there from Lakenheath as real world security. So it was literally a paid vacation to go up to
Okay.
Scotland and guard their aircraft. And the local guards from Scotland, uh, they were constantly wanting us to eat their cuisine, getting me, well, we'll just say some spirits that were of Scottish nature.
Okay.
And and one of the things they did was the older guy, his wife made haggis, and he was like, "Who's willing to try it?" And I said, "Okay, I'll get the shot." So I tried it. I absolutely loved it. I thought it was really good,
Nice.
and I didn't know what was in it at the time, which kind of helped. But I
And
probably
feel
was.
free to tell the audience what's in haggis.
You know what? I think that is one of those things that everybody needs to just experience for themselves. If you get a chance to go to England or Scotland, try the haggis. Don't don't think about it. Stay away from blood pudding, but try the haggis.
That's just the name. If they renamed it, it would probably be great.
No, if you
No.
saw it, you'd be like, "What? No,
Yeah, it's black.
yeah, it's not good." But I
Uh,
mean, even the Brits, like the English, they Yorkshire pudding. It's not a pudding. It's like a roll or a biscuit. Absolutely fantastic. Um, Preacher, you stay out of this, buddy. Um,
uh,
but yeah, the Yorkshire pudding is really fantastic, and My favorite drinks to this day, you can get over there nonstop. Iron Brew,
Iron brew?
IRNBRU. Yep, it's IRNBRU. It's made from girders, according to the commercials.
From what?
From girders, according to the commercials. It's supposed to be
Burgers?
girders, like the
Oh,
metal.
girders.
Yep.
Oh, oh, okay.
So it's fantastic, fantastic
Okay.
fizzy drink that is probably very carbonated. It's very carbonated.
Oh, funny. Now, Curifier says that you got her hooked on the good tea also.
Yes. So up until that point, my mom would only drink, or she would only keep Lipton tea in her house. It was
Right.
That's what I grew up on. That's what she always had. It was
Yep.
just,
I think most American families, that's what we had.
yep. And so after being over there, I started drinking PG Tips and Tetley's and other British teas that were much better. And of course, I came home, brought the tea with me, and of course shared it with Carefire, because she had to have some because I had to
Says
get
me.
everybody. Yes, I got everybody, as many people as I could, hooked on my stupidity stuff.
Hey, right? I mean, it helps though too, because then you feel like they get to be kind of a part of where you
Yeah,
are and what you're doing and part of
exactly.
that culture. So, mentally, that helps
Right.
you. So I get that.
The only bad thing was, is so me and my first wife, we divorced before I went to England. And when I first got to England, I got to England in December of 2004, 2003. Can't remember which one. Four. I think it was four. Um, and then the fall that February is when I got notified that my stepfather had passed. So I had to fly home, and uh, oh, it was '03. Yep. Okay, because yeah, John died in '04. You're right. Thank you, Kim. Um, so yeah, I ended up flying home and uh, buried my stepdad. Um, and that was probably one of the darkest moments of my life. And that is even over the two deployments that I really don't even like to talk about. But my stepdad meant the world to me. Um, he was he was probably more proud of me of what I was doing than anybody I've ever met in my life. And the only thing he got to see me do was up until '04. And so he didn't have any idea of how long I was going to stay in or where I was going to take this. So rest in peace, John. Got nothing but love for you. Um, that's he was not my biological father, but he is my dad.
Right,
So
right. And that makes sense to me.
yep.
No, the whole time, what was your mom thinking now that you were in England, by the way?
Um, After my stepdad had passed, she actually had a thought for a fleeting moment. My mother is afraid of height, or was afraid. She had passed recently, so but we'll get there. She was afraid of heights, so she would not fly. There was no way that my mother was going to fly anywhere. Um, and then, but after my stepdad had passed, she had a fleeting moment where she thought about flying out to England to see me. Um,
Oh,
and I mean, I don't know if she would have done well there. It would have been culture shock. Um, she absolutely would have loved how the people talked and with the accent and everything, but I don't know if she would have been able to deal with a lot of the other things that she would have been a typical American thinking, "Oh, I have freedom of speech. I have freedom of this. I have freedom." You don't have rights over there. So
right. And yeah, correct. Exactly.
she
You
wouldn't have
look
she would not have been a good ambassador for Americans.
uh so
So
okay. And but she wanted to come and see you, and I'm assuming, of course, you'd kept her kind of in the loop of
oh yeah.
what you were doing and everything and
Yeah,
staying
we
in touch.
Yeah, we talked about once a week. I was making it a point to call home about once a week. Um, Phone bills were, you know, wildly.
Back then, it was by the minute.
Well, I didn't have
Oh,
cell phone.
yeah.
So you'd get that international long distance rate on your home phone, and it was like,
Yep.
oh my God, you just see the bill, $193 for a phone bill. So
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
that was in pounds actually. So that was like 200 quid is what they called their British pound sterling quid. So that was like 200 quid, and at the time it was like 50 cents to a quid. So it was like $400 phone bill. It was pretty
That's
harsh.
nuts.
Yeah.
You know, interestingly enough, yesterday, I was just sitting there and all of a sudden the question popped up in my head, or it wasn't even a question, it was just more of a thought about how far we have come, right?
Hmm.
And how we went from being charged by the minute if it was outside of our little itty bitty area for phone calls. And then they go to, per month billing
Hmm.
for pretty much, you can do unlimited or
Yeah.
whatever. It's quite interesting that start of those, long distance calls and
What's even better is when you start thinking about it and you would get those free minutes after 9 p.m. So
yes.
you'd make all your phone calls after 9 p.m.
Yep.
And now that you can phone call anytime you want. Nobody calls, everybody texts.
Right. And it's even better, especially with, when you're on the phone, when you've got your cell phone, if the person that you're sending your call to or your text to has the same um carrier,
Yeah.
then it's free.
Yeah.
So,
That's quite
little
interesting.
perks. That's I don't know why that popped into my head, and it's so interesting that, that it just kinda came up today, so,
Yep.
um, so you were there, you said, and then you went to
So I went from England. I went all over like I did a TDY up in Scotland. I did a couple of deployments. I did a TDY to Germany. I did a TDY to Australia for
wow,
a rugby match. Yeah, as soon as I got there, they're like, "Hey, you're going to go to Australia for a rugby match," because
and you
Americans were
said,
going. Absolutely okay, because whatever. Um,
"Let's go."
yeah, so I mean, I kind of went TDY a lot. In the 4 years I was in England, I was only on home duty station maybe a year and a half. I was just
Oh, wow,
constantly, yeah, I was just
okay.
constantly going.
So,
Just
out of all of those countries that you have talked about, named off, was there one in particular that you liked the best?
um, well, Scotland probably was my favorite. Was my best TDY to date because it was so relaxed and chill. And the Scottish guards, they took care of us. I mean, they hooked us up so much. I absolutely loved my time there with them. Having a traditional Scottish breakfast every morning
What does
because
that consist of?
um, eggs, mushrooms, some warm tomatoes with
I'm
sardines
not
on
a
top
big
of your
tomato
eggs.
fan, but you got me
I'm
sold.
not either. So like the mushrooms I was excited for. Those were good. I love mushrooms. The eggs were good, but they put two sardines over your eggs. That's traditional Scottish breakfast. I'm not a sardine fan. Um, and it did make your eggs taste horrible. But you know, these Scottish guys, they took care of me in the aspect of their wives were taking care of me. They were taking care of me. I couldn't have asked for a better TDY. Um, in that time frame just because it was such a warm, welcoming feeling. Um,
And what were they called?
they were just contracted Scottish guards. They were they're
So a shout out
they're
to the Scottish Guards.
yep Scottish guards that were up in the I can't even remember the base name because it's a shutdown base. But yeah, they're probably passed away. That was over 20 years ago, and they were already in their 70s. So if
Oh,
they're still
wow.
alive, you guys are badasses.
There you go.
Um,
There you go. We gotta throw it
yeah,
out there, right? When we have the
yeah.
opportunity, good
But
stuff, we gotta we gotta
Scotland was definitely very hospitable.
that is on our bucket list, as is
Ah,
Ireland.
I've been to Ireland. I'll get to that here in a little bit.
Mhm.
But yeah, Scotland was definitely great. Iceland was good too. So I'll give you. So let's move
I'm
on.
yeah, I'm just like salivating over here going, I
Yeah.
want to go. I want to go. I want to go. I'll
So
live
after
vicariously through you.
right. So after 4 years in England, I went on to F.E. Warren Air Force Base, Wyoming. That's in Cheyenne.
Okay. Yep.
That is a black hole for Air Force security forces. When I first got there, it was you get there and there's no guarantee you ever get to leave. Um,
Oh, that was the
yeah,
rumor, or that was what
that's
happened?
kind of how it was. I actually served under a guy who was a master sergeant. Out of his 22 years, he served 20 or 19. He served 19 at F.E. Warren.
Wow.
The other three was in Alaska, and that was his first assignment, I think. And the other
Was there a
19.
punishment in there somewhere?
So they did eventually move it where you're supposed to get orders after 5 years. They were definitely trying to do an incentive to start moving people around, and that if you have been at that base for 5 years, you'll get orders. I don't know how well that's working. It wasn't going so well when I was there, but we'll
Times may
see.
be changing.
Yeah,
We
I
can
mean,
always
I
hope,
I
right?
have been retired for 5 years, so who knows? So,
Oh my gosh.
um,
That's crazy. So, yeah, so Montana. So we're from Montana, so
mhm,
not that far, of course. So, when you get there,
yeah.
what are you thinking about the landscape there?
Well, my first experience there was quite interesting because I had never seen an antelope before, and I got to the
Pronghorn.
yeah. So I flew back to Michigan for leave, and then I drove across because I bought a truck while I was in Michigan, and I drove across to Nebraska, and I fell asleep in Nebraska, and then I woke up and I started driving again, and then I promptly fell asleep again in Nebraska because I didn't realize how long that damn state is. Um, and by the time I got to Cheyenne, I got onto the base, and there was pronghorn just walking around freely, and they'll stop you in the middle of the road and just look at you like you're stupid. And I'm like, what the hell are these alien looking deer? And
That is the biggest difference between all the deer in Wyoming versus all the deer in
yeah,
Montana. So, Wyoming deer, for any of you happening to go through Wyoming, they like to stay in the middle of the road. If you're in Montana, most of the time they're just off to the side, or
and
they try and play Frogger and get to
well,
the other
the
side.
ones on the Air Force Base, they know that they can't be harmed. You're not supposed to try and approach them. You're not supposed to try and like hit them with your car or anything like that. They know that they're protected pretty much. So they'll just stand there, even when you're sitting there honking your horn. They'll just look at you like, "What are you gonna do?" So it was, that was my first experience, and I'm like, "What the hell?" So that was interesting. But I got assigned to my new flight, and they made me a law enforcement guy because I did get some law enforcement experience over at Lake and Heath, so I was pretty fortunate for that.
And
Um,
now, how many years have you been into this point?
so at this point, I was about 8 or 9 years in.
So
Um,
you re-upped because you
yeah,
had a 6-year contract.
absolutely. So at my 6 year mark, we'll go back. At my 6 year mark, for me to stay at England, I had to extend um, out to 7, 8 years. Had 7 years. I had to extend out to 7 years to take the orders to England. So I did, and I was supposed to get out of the military and go back to Michigan, but I started thinking about how difficult it would be to transition from military life to civilian life as it was, but transitioning from civilian life to or from military life to civilian life in a different country as well. So I was like, I'm just gonna re-up. So I re-signed and was like, okay, I'm gonna do 10 years. Um, and so that's how I ended up getting to F.E. Warren.
Okay, so
Um,
you're coming up to your 10-year mark,
yep.
and you're in Wyoming.
Yes.
Okay. Um, how long were you in Wyoming for?
I was there until I retired. So 13 years ish,
Wow.
14,
Okay.
12, 13 years around there. A lot of
Excuse
interesting stories though. So,
So funny
um,
stories. Let's hear them.
well, so, I got to Evie Warren, um, and I had heard all these ghost stories that, oh, the base is haunted, the base is haunted. I will tell you all, if you get orders to Effie Warren, that base is friggin' haunted.
It
Okay.
really is.
It really, yeah, I'm not even joking. I, I got there. I went to Billings to get a room until, cause I just got there and whatnot. And I was literally talking to my mother on the phone and I could hear horses like plain as day. My mom could hear them over the phone.
Oh,
Like
wow.
there was horses and she could hear them. She's like, how close are you to the base stables? I was like, I have no idea. Um, oh, you really, preacher? You had to say that? Really?
Yeah, I want to hear that story, but finish with this one.
So, and then yes, the next day I found out that the horse stables were not even close to me, and that all of the buildings that were just adjacent to me used to be horse stables during the time of Effie Warren's founding. And it was like, oh, I see. And I'm going to point out that with what preacher or alleged doctor just said, I was actually trying to get through that whole thing without actually mentioning that, but you tell one person as a friend and they just rat you out, So,
So let's hear it.
so while I was in England, the individual that I said that I met that I was friends with, her job was literally basically it was public affairs in London. So she had told me that they were going to be filming a movie and they were looking for extras. So she's like, you should put in for it. Here is the casting agency. So
But you're also in the military.
but I'm also in the military, yes.
Okay.
So I put in my headshot and my experience and I sent it to the casting agency that I got from this person. And they didn't call or anything like that. Preacher, you're going to pay for that one, by the way. Um, they they didn't contact me or anything, and so I was just calling to find out what the status was. And so I called the casting agency and I was like, "Hey, I had put in my headshot for this movie role or for this extras role," and they were like, "What movie?" And I said it was The Bourne Ultimatum. So
Really?
yes, and so they were like, "Oh, okay. So you're trying to find out when your audition time is?" Now, mind you, I had not gotten a phone call yet. And they're all like, I just, yeah, absolutely. Like, I'm just trying to figure out where it's at. And they're all like, oh, it's at Pinewood Studios at this time. I was like, great, I'll be there. Thank you. And so when I get there, they didn't have my name on the list, but they were like, oh, they must have dropped the ball. Um, so they kind of gave me an opportunity to audition, and they ended up casting me not as an extra, but they actually casted me as one of their agents, and I made it into the film for a total of 3 seconds. It's nothing serious.
Now
Three
this is on
seconds.
my list. I got to go back and refine the and rewatch this movie.
Yeah,
Okay. So, and you were one of the agents.
I was one of the agents. We were at the Waterloo train station scene. Um,
I'm going to take notes.
you, you might want to take notes because
Hang on, wait. For
I
three
will tell
seconds,
you.
I really got to
I,
pay
I will.
attention.
Yeah, I will tell you exactly where you can find me, but I will tell you that it's going to be a very short and quick situation. Okay, so it's not that serious. Um, so in the Waterloo train station scene, after he meets up with the reporter, and slips the phone in his pocket. You see Matt Damon walking across this bridge. And then it shows the camera that's kind of like overhead, and you see two people that are running through an alley. Okay. I am the one on the left. The one on the right, or it would be my left, your right, as watching it. His name is Darren, and he was screaming into a microphone. They didn't like his voice, so they used my voice for.
Did they just do a voiceover?
Yeah, they did a voiceover and they took a part from another area that they had voices, and they were like, "Yep, we're just gonna slide that in there." And it's amazing what you can really do. And I'll tell you, for the 3 seconds that I was in that movie, I now understand why movies are way over budgeted, because I made like 14 grand off that movie.
For 3 seconds.
For three
Wow.
seconds.
Did you get to meet Matt Damon at all?
I did. I met Matt Damon. Very nice guy. He's
He seems pretty down to earth. Now, granted,
very down to
I
earth,
know nothing
but he's
about him.
also he's also he's also kind of a jerk because,
Is he?
well, not in a bad way. So while we were filming, he noticed that there was this lineup of like young females that were kind of like oohing and on over him. And so we were filming another area where he was supposed to put it simply, there was like this hallway like this, and there's two stores. And he was supposed to walk behind the store, go in and go into the store. And then you were supposed to see the two agents wrong way, walk behind this way.
Okay.
Okay. So we kept filming over and over and over, trying to get it right. Um, and every time, instead of just going resetting back the way he came, he would come around, hit me on the arm, and go, "How you doing, Raj?" And he'd just keep walking. So now all these young females kept looking at me like he must be somebody, that Matt Damon knows him. And I'm just like, oh God. And so they just kept gawking and whatnot. And one of them actually asked me for an autograph, and I told them, if you could tell me what movie I was in, I'll give you an autograph. And
Ah,
she was like, weren't you in Harry Potter? Like, who do you think I am?
wow.
Malfoy? I mean, Jesus.
Wow. Because yeah, you're still in the military, so I'm assuming you were clean shaven.
hmm
Yes.
And
Yes.
I had really tight hair,
Yep.
just barely on top. My bangs were spiked. It was I had a very natural military look at that point, basically a high and tight. So
That is so funny that you go in for an extra
yep,
and you get something a little bit more than that.
yeah, and then after that I kept yes, and yes, thank you, Kara. Yes, my nose was still crooked at the time.
You got a
Um,
crooked nose. Make it
I had
more
my nose broke.
realistic, right?
Had my nose broken a couple of times when I was in high school. It's fine.
I got
Um,
mine broken too at 18.
so I then got really into, I wanted to act. I wanted to be able to get into acting. So I started auditioning for other roles, and I met a lot of other actors and actresses in that time frame. Um, so yeah, it was a good time. So let's go back to Effie Warren, since my friends and family want to call me out.
We love having him here, by the way. Thank y'all for being here tonight and helping to support Rebel. So thank you for that. Okay, so it
So
balls in your court, Rebel.
all right, so back to Effie Warren. Um, first few years I did law enforcement, went into security after that. Basically WSA security, which is the weapons storage area. It's where they have these really big, you know, explosive things. Can't really confirm or deny that we had. Um, and then about 13 years in, I made E6. Well, 12 years. It was about 12 years in, I made E6. And you stop it, preacher. Um, Made E6, so they sent me to NCOA, which is Non-Commissioned Officer Academy. Went there with the intentions of um, basically doing the best I could. And I looked at my senior, who was Senior Master Sergeant Brian Kane, and I said, "I'm going to do whatever I can to get a distinguished graduate award out of this, and I'm
Wow.
bringing it home to you." And he was like, "All right." Um, I was about 2 weeks in when I heard that one of my troops had committed suicide. Um, that wasn't the first of the troops that I knew that had done it, but it was the first that was a direct line of my troops, and it tore me up. Um, they asked me if I wanted to go home. I was like, "There's nothing I can do there." So I finished it out. I did end up graduating with honors, which I was very thankful for. I worked my ass off for it.
Mhm.
Um, and then as soon as I got back, they sent me up to another school. Um, so I've been to numerous schools at this point throughout my career. I've been to El Paso, Texas, and Nevada, and um, back to Lake and Heath a couple of times, or sorry, Lackland a couple of times. Went to Eglin Air Force Base in Florida for TDY. So I've been to schools nonstop. It was never ending process of just constantly coming and going. Um, and during this time, I'm with my third wife, so we're just like, I met this woman and she's great and she's supportive, and here I am. I'm constantly coming and going, and she barely gets to see me. Like at this point, I think we were, I don't know, a couple years. We were together for a couple of years at this point, and I'm gone for 8 weeks to NCOA, and I come back for a week, and they send me somewhere else for another 2 weeks. I mean, I'm just like, I'm so sorry. There's nothing I can do about this.
Right, right.
Um,
Military's got priority, unfortunately.
yeah. Um, Finally, at some point, they decided, okay, we're going to move you up to big missiles. I had never worked big missiles at this point, and my wife was not thrilled by this because I'd be gone for 6 days, home for 3. Um, it was it was pretty standard. I mean, it was kind of like nonstop. It was just like be gone for a while, be back for a while, like for a few days. Um, so yeah, it was very hard, I'm sure, for her, um, because I was never around. She had to take care of things a lot by herself.
Yeah.
Um, Thankful, very thankful that she stuck around. There was a light at the end of the tunnel at this point for like a few more years. Just deal with it for a few more years. Um, and this is when I started noticing a lot of my pain in my body. My knees were starting to give out. My feet were completely shot. My hips were hurting. My back was hurting. And I think it was at one point that my wife went to grab my foot. It was like early in the morning or whatever, and she just went to touch my foot just to say good morning. And it was probably one of the most excruciating pains I had. And I just pulled my foot away from her, like really bad. And she's like, what's going on? Then she looked at my foot, and there was this big swelling on the side of my foot. So she forced me to go to the doctor. I did not
We're
want to.
good like that.
Yeah, she doesn't understand why I don't go to the doctor. And then I tell her because every time I go to the doctor, they tell me bad news. So why would I want to go?
Because you don't want it to be the worst news?
Well, it was pretty bad. So I ended up having to get surgery on both of my feet. Now, mind you, this time in my career, I'm an E6. I've been in for quite a while, 14 or 15 years. And I'm going to the clinic because I'm hurt. I'm hurting and I'm having issues. The clinic had no desire to actually fix me. They just threw ibuprofen at me, told me to drink water and get back out to work. Um, Hold on, I'm reading what Kyra
Like
said.
when you skipped going after you had that fight with the shower and the toilet.
Oh, that was, see, that's one of those stories that I was hoping that wouldn't be brought up. All I'm going to say is that
Who
I
won?
was I was jumped. Okay, that's all I'm going to say is I was
Okay,
jumped.
so it wasn't you that won.
Look, I learned real quick that you should put the little sticky stuff down at the bottom of the tub. That's all I
Yes.
learned.
Yes.
And Yeah, the shower curtain picked a fight with me. The toilet jumped me, and I ended up having a. That was the week before I met my wife when that happened, because I remember going and having a
Ugh,
bandage on my head when I met her. So,
that's
but I should have got stitches, but I waited for like 3 or 4 hours after it happened, so that way they couldn't. But thank you for bringing up bad subjects, Kim. I appreciate that. If y'all want to know where she lives, let me know. I will help you,
we'll
and
put
you
it in the
can send
chats
her.
for you.
Yeah, we can.
Untrackable, welcome. Thank you for being
We,
here.
you can send her hate mail. So, so yeah, the clinic wouldn't really do anything. They just kind of bandage you up and send you back out. And my wife noticed that there was a lot going on. I was in a lot of pain all the time. She kept telling me I had to go back. I had to go back. Um, and all I got, like, I remember once my knee was hurting so bad, and I had like this knot on the side of my knee, and I went there, and the captain that was there, Captain Quenneville, um, what a douchebag. That guy, I can say that now. I'm protected by my DD 214.
There you go, right? What are they gonna do? Take it away from you?
So he's well, it's a funny story on that one too. So he literally asked me when my PT test was. I'm like 15 years in. This is not like, I'm not like a young airman at this point. And I was like, when's yours? He's like, what's that matter? And I was like, I don't know. I thought we were both asking questions that didn't matter for the subject at hand here. I'm trying to get my knee looked at. So he ended up going and pulling up my PT records, and then came back with and I shit you not, a WebMD printout of what I can do to help my knee pain. It's like, are you kidding me? You're being paid money by the government to do a job, and you're not doing it.
Right.
Um, and that it was a lot of the clinic was like that, and especially the ones that were military. That's the sad part. It seemed like the civilians that worked there actually cared more about the service members than the military members, the captains and the majors that were there. And it
Now, is
was
this
not a
just
good
a clinic on
experience.
base?
Yes. So um, at Kirtland, we had a huge hospital outside the base, but it was a lot of military. It was mostly military members that were um, doing all of the medical stuff there. And then at Lakenheath, we had a hospital on base, and it was a lot of the military members that were there. And then at FE Warren, they just have a little clinic. And if you had a serious enough issue that they didn't have any answer for, um, they would send you to a specialist. But getting that recommendation or that
Yeah.
that authorization to go to the specialist, it didn't come. It was like, no, you're fine. They didn't even look at Quenneville never even looked at my knee.
Did
Didn't
they
even
didn't X-ray it or anything?
He didn't even pull my pant. He didn't even ask me to pull my pant leg up.
Oh, love it.
So I'm sitting here with a knot on the side of my knee. I went and filed a complaint against him, and I showed the patient advocate the knot on the side of my knee, and they were like, he didn't even look at it. And I said, no, you gave me this, and I showed them the WebMD printout, and they were pretty pissed off about it. But yeah, it was very horrible, and it was not an enjoyable experience. The military members absolutely got to a point um, where they didn't want to go to the clinic to get help because they weren't getting the help they needed.
Right, right, which makes sense.
I was like a year out from retiring, and I had a civilian primary care manager, and he wanted me to get seen for or go get a sleep study done for sleep apnea. Um, but then all of a sudden they pulled him off patients. I don't know why. And so I got this new captain. And as soon as I went in there and I said, hey, I was supposed to go do a sleep study that this individual wanted me to do because my wife is concerned that I'm stopping breathing in the middle of the night.
Yeah.
And he literally looked at me and said, oh, because you want the disability. No,
Ah,
no, it's not because I want the disability. I don't care about the disability. I want to be able to not die. Okay. And this is for anybody that sit there, anybody that is watching this. If you are a military member and you are getting disability and you're only at 20 or 30%, and you say, God, I really wish I could be 100%, I can tell you 100% right now, I would give away my 100% disability to live a pain-free life. Absolutely would.
Yep.
It is not worth it.
Yep.
I do not want that money. I just don't want to be in pain. Um, so uh, again, and then I made a complaint against him as well because I was completely pissed off with his comments. Um, so my last year in the military was a lot of fighting to make sure that I was getting taken care of.
Yeah.
Um, I had surgery on both of my feet for nerve damage. That I got a shit ton of nerve damage on both of my feet. My knees are both jacked. I have a compressed spine. I have messed up hips, slip disc.
What was
Um,
that bulge on the side of your knee?
they it was a torn meniscus.
Oh, wow. Okay, my mind
Um,
was thinking of maybe a Baker's cyst, so I was
no,
nowhere close.
it was a torn meniscus that was severely inflamed because of what was going on with my left foot. Where when I went to finally get to the podiatrist because I did have a lump on the side of my left foot as well, he determined that if they would have looked at my right knee, they should have said, "Let's see what your left foot looks like," because from his experience, it was you could tell that I was compensating on my right side
Yeah.
to just because of the pain that I was getting on my left side. Um, and so, yeah, I was in pretty sorry state by the time I retired. I was not like a lot of people talk about how they have to try and work hard to get their disability at a certain, just to get their disability rating. I got 100 without even really having to do a whole lot. I went through I basically submitted my records to my veteran services officer, and they went through and they pulled everything they could from it and sent me to see a doctor to get everything checked out, and they determined I was 100% pretty quick. So that to me was sweet justification to every supervisor who tried to claim I was malingering. It was the justification to every commander who tried to act like that it was, oh, you're just faking it so you can have an office job. These are the
Right?
things that the active military is currently still dealing with. I guarantee it to this day.
Yeah. And I have to say that is one of the biggest issues with anybody who ends up injured for any reason there.
Yep.
The first thing, yeah, I mean, I can tell you, so my second Marine, youngest Marine veteran now, he had an adverse reaction to the COVID shot.
Yep.
Uh, Facial paralysis, the whole 9 yards, and ended up with trigeminal neuralgia. Well, after the palsy went away, he still had this searing pain coming down his face. So physically, they don't see anything. So, I mean, he had three. He had his staff sergeant, his first sergeant, and a gunny in his face in medical telling him he was a liar and a faker.
Yep. It's
And that's not
bad.
the I mean, I have heard story after story after story, about the exact same kind of treatment for those who end up in medical, and I am so sorry that you have had to deal with that ever. I think it's
I don't
ridiculous.
I appreciate the empathy, but realistically, I'm more about for any active duty member that is currently watching or comes across this, I will just please take my advice. Go to the clinic. Fight every chance you can to
Yep,
make sure that you're taken care of
yep,
because the clinic doesn't do anything with you after you get out. Once you get out of the military, that clinic has nothing to do with you.
right.
In
It
fact,
goes right to the VA.
yeah, and they also will lose your records.
Yep,
My vaccination records were completely lost. I I mean it was like they had nothing for like the first 14 years of my career, it showed that I didn't have any vaccinations. It's like, well, we know that's not true. Um, so just, take care of yourself, because your commander, your supervisor, if they try to stop you from going to the clinic to get seen, they don't have your best interest at heart.
Exactly right.
They have the mission at heart. And there is a very fine line, and this is why my name is Rebel, is because the troops that I took care of, the troops that I had 72 troops assigned under me at one point, and out of those 72 troops, they could all tell you the same thing, that I tried to take care of them the best I could, and it was never a, hey, Sergeant Repson, I need to go to the clinic. Well, I'm sorry, I can't take you there, or I'm sorry, you can't go. I need you for manning. No, you take care of yourself.
That's
That
right.
is the most important thing, because the mission will take care of itself. And if the mission can't take care of itself, then the commander needs to do a better job.
Yeah.
And yeah, I am all for this, the airmen. I'm all for the troops.
Yeah.
I have never put myself above them. I never tried to make it where I got promoted. That wasn't my job. My job was to get my troops promoted. My supervisor's job was to get me promoted. If he didn't do his job, I can't control that. But I wasn't going to stop my troops from promoting. That's for sure. And so there is, to this day, I have numerous troops that I had that now outrank me, or have outranked me in their career, and they were worried about even telling me about it. Hey, I'm 87. Why? Why are you worried about telling me? I did my job. You got promoted. That's exactly what needed to happen.
Right.
There's
And
no
I
hard
think
feelings
I
about
think
that.
that is such a great mindset. And unfortunately, sometimes you get those people in power that are egotistical, and it's all about them and
Yep.
their success. And if so it's really difficult. And I know, when you are trying to heal from any kind of an injury, you need to rest. You don't need to be hounded. You don't need to be called a liar and a faker. You just don't need that stress. When you
Right.
have that kind of stress on a daily basis, multiple times in a day, you're not going to heal. In fact, all it's going to do is mess you up and say, "Get
Yep.
me out." And
Exactly.
yeah. So in the end, you've gotten yourself fairly fixed up.
No, I'm still messed up. My knees and feet pain are still there.
Have you
Then
gone into, now that you're retired or out separated, have you gone to the VA?
so I use the VA right now currently.
Good.
And they're doing the best they can. But the podiatrist that I went to for my feet pain, he's one of the best in the country, and he's pretty much like, whatever after that surgery, whatever your feet are at, that's pretty much what it's going to be, unless you get your nerve endings burned off. And he said he could do it, but he also said there comes a lot of struggle with that, because it's like walking around with your feet being asleep all the time, and it's like, well,
Yeah.
I don't want that.
You end up
So
tripping over yourself, I could imagine.
yeah, I have a hard I have good days and bad days. And the good days are now being outweighed. So I retired in February 29th of 2020. I did it on leap day.
Okay, so you got out of there before COVID.
Just before, yep.
Yeah.
Me, I retired. Me and my wife went up to Glenwood Springs to spend some time in the hot springs. Also, the burial place of Doc Holliday, since Val Kilmer's passing, and he played Doc Holliday. Kind of a
Yep. Yep.
throw that
Shout
out,
out there.
shout out there. And then, this is me and my wife at that point had not spent more than 2, maybe 3 days together at a time, and now we're being thrown into a house. I don't have a job, and we're being thrown into our house together for 10 months together. Um,
And this is you when you get out.
just after I got out. Yep.
So, stepping back just a little bit, so you wanna terminate with them, separate.
Hmm.
Um, did they provide you any resources as far as, how best to integrate back
Yes.
into civilization, if we will?
Yeah, you actually are required to go through a week-long course that helps you integrate. It's literally like how to write a resume, how to do interviews, stuff like that. So I will say that the Air Force did a pretty good job on that, of ensuring that they gave you as much information as possible of integrating into the civilian world. Um, but I think that could definitely it could be different depending on what base you're at.
Right.
The individuals at FE Warren absolutely cared about the individuals getting out, and they wanted to set them up for success. And so those individuals at FE Warren, they were a absolute badass when it came to that. They were so good at it. Um, yeah, I would say it's different from base to base, but it was definitely a good experience on that aspect when I left. That I did that week long class. It was definitely worth it up at FE Warren. So
Well, now I know you were hoping to join um a police department, something along those lines,
yep.
right? And so they talk about how, your time in the military could then converge into
Yes,
everyday life for a job?
absolutely. But at that point, I had no desire to go into a police department after 20 years. So I was actually banking more on my experience as a supervisor, having up to 70 troops underneath me and stuff like that.
Yep, yep, yep.
That I banked more on that aspect, my leadership aspect. And the only problem was is that right after I retired, we had COVID. Nobody was hiring.
Right.
And so my anxiety went through the roof, that I couldn't find a job. I'm stuck in my house with my wife, which I love
And
very much, but I
but you
was
feel
more
like you've got
concerned.
no direction
Yep,
because you don't have somebody saying this, you need to do this, or
yep,
this. You have your orders. You don't have those now.
right. And on top of that, I don't want to be a disturbance to her and mess up her inner peace, which I'm pretty sure I did for that 10 months. I mean, we have an 1,800 square foot house, but that's still not enough room sometimes, especially during that time frame. It was definitely it was definitely a struggle, but at the end of the day, we still liked each other, and that's what mattered. We still wanted to be with each other. We just didn't necessarily want to be in the same space with each other. It
I
was
think
go
any
find a
married
hobby.
couple can say they've been through that
Yeah,
phase,
go find a hobby.
especially the longer
Yeah.
you're together. So, um,
So it was difficult timing, but I ended up getting a job at Home Depot um,
okay, and
as a
nothing wrong with
department
that.
supervisor. Nope. It was my first job outside of the military after doing a long career, and I did very well at it. And I worked there for a year, and then I decided I couldn't stand the store manager. I felt like he didn't have very good leadership skills, and so I decided I was going to leave and go to a different job. And I got hired on at Kodak Alaris, where I was kind of a tool and die machinist, which is
Okay.
taking care of the equipment and making sure that the presses stayed running. Um, and I worked there for 3 years. And then I found out that I took my dog to a trainer because we adopted a dog. So in the time, I should have mentioned this, but in the time that me and my wife were together and whatnot, we had an opportunity to adopt a military working dog that was retiring.
Oh.
And we did. We absolutely loved her. God rest your soul, Vesta. I know you're up at the Rainbow Bridge. Um, Vesta was an amazing dog. She was a Belgian Malinois. Um,
Love them.
so do I. She was probably one of the best dogs I've ever seen or had the pleasure of being around. And now, mind you, at this point, I had to put my dog down. Vesta got to the point where she was too old. She couldn't do things. I had to put her down. At this point, my Stepdad had passed. I didn't cry at his funeral. My mom had passed. I didn't cry at her funeral. Um, but when I had to put her down, there was one point where I remember laying on the floor and I'm just sobbing. And my wife came over to me and said, "What is going on?" And I said, I can't. I need a dog. I need a dog in my life. Um, so she, as the amazing, beautiful woman that she is, she decided that, okay, let's go find a dog. We ended up rescuing a dog from the shelter. Her name's Jameson. But Jameson was only a year, like a little less than a year old, and she had some issues. So I took her to a trainer and decided that I was going to invest in training to make sure that, because she had a little bit of a biting issue and we needed to fix it. So they did a fantastic job. Mountain State Canine, they did a fantastic job. Cole and Carrie, you guys rock. But in that process, I found my passion and started researching. I started signing up for classes at Mountain State Canine to put Jameson through other things. We did a hiking class with her. We did AKC, Canine Good Citizen, and come to find out that the GI Bill actually covers a school to be a master certified canine trainer,
Wow.
which is where I'm currently at. I'm currently at school at Highland Canine in North Carolina, only about 1,200 miles from my wife. Um, Learning to be a master certified canine trainer and canine behaviorist.
Wow.
Oh,
And you're loving it up. How long before you get your certification for this?
so I will be graduating in June. Um, I
That is
started,
coming up.
yeah, I started the 1st of January. Alleged doctor over in the comments there. He was one of my classmates. He ended up having to leave for medical reasons, but me and him found my brother from another mother. That's him. Um,
Okay.
we ended up we hit it off so well that me and him are like, we're never going to separate. Probably going to go up and see him after I graduate and go up to Massachusetts and see him and make sure he's doing good. But um, one of the things I found that with my passion, or with this being my passion of training dogs, the pain doesn't seem to bother me as much when I'm doing something I absolutely love.
Right. Your focus shifts.
Yeah. And it really is it's a beautiful thing. I'm working with dogs every day. It helps out so much.
I'm
Um,
gonna send mine to you.
I get that a lot, actually.
I have this
Um,
Siberian Husky, 2
oh, no,
years.
no, nope, nope. Huskies are not trainable.
I'm telling I'll have you know
They're
though,
stubborn.
after 2 years, that's when you start training them.
Yeah,
I have
for a
figured this
husky.
out with this one. I
Yeah,
had a Sapala sled dog prior to this, and he was great, but it took a couple years for him also because I do hand signals,
yeah,
right? Sit, stay, down, kind of a thing, basic.
yep.
But and I feed them. They each so I have 2 dogs, and so, each have their bowls, and the husky, wants to jump up and basically knock the bowl out of your hand if you let him, but I make them sit. So he
Yeah.
and my border collie Australian shepherd, really quick to pick stuff up, and he's been, doing all of that with hand signals for years. He's coming up like 11 or something like that, I don't know.
Yep.
Anyway, so, finally got him after at least a year and a half to learn to sit, right? And so I'm like this with both of them after I laid their bowls down, they got to sit. And I've been trying to get the husky to like lay down. And I can do that, and my other dog will lay right down, but the other one is like, well, all of a sudden within like the last 3 weeks I've done that, and, like, he just slams himself to the floor. That means
Well,
I get my food sooner. Let's go.
well, stay tuned because you stay in contact with me after this, and once I graduate, I'm probably going to start a YouTube channel based off of dog training and a TikTok channel that is going to be all dog training.
Excellent.
Yeah, my goal from this is that I'm going to do general obedience, obviously, and dog behavior modifications, but ultimately, I would love to be able to train service dogs for
Yeah.
military
Yeah.
veterans for TBI, anxiety, and PTSD. And I wanted to make it where it's either no cost or low cost to the veteran, because the VA does not do a good job of getting veterans the like if they need a service dog, the VA, it's very hard to get one through the VA. My goal is to make it where they have a dog that's around that 2 year mark or a year and a half or a year mark, where I can start training it and it's mature enough to be able to take that training, that I would be able to train it, as I said, for no cost or low cost at a price that they can afford,
Right.
and do that training for them. So that way they don't have to wait for the VA to get them what they need. They can get what they need and then just try to get the letter from the VA saying that they need a service dog.
I think that's amazing. I really think that's amazing, and the fact that you want to continue to serve, with by helping other veterans, I think it's
Yeah,
amazing.
that is my
Um,
ultimate goal.
and I want to make sure we keep in contact, and you keep me posted on how things are going for you with this, because
Absolutely.
I'm all about supporting our veterans. And you get yourself a channel up and going, you need help with any of that, you let me know. And then also, I'm more than happy to promote your channel and what you're doing. So
I absolutely appreciate it, and I definitely will keep in touch. I told you I'd keep it right around 2 hours. I'm
you're
sitting there
doing great.
pretty
You're
close.
doing great. If 3 hours is, I decided, is my cutoff. But
Yeah,
so
that's too late
let's
for me though.
I know. So anybody in the chats, first I want to thank everybody for coming out tonight. But if you guys have any questions for Rebel, go ahead and get those put in the chats for me, please. And while they type, because some people are not as quick as others, um, what other words of wisdom do you happen to have for anyone who is looking to join the military in general?
Absolutely. One of the things I would tell you to do is don't listen to a recruiter. Find out exactly what scores you need to get whatever job you want. Study for that ASVAB,
Yeah,
and then ultimately, when you do the ASVAB, make sure you know what your jobs you qualify for. Even if you didn't get the one that you didn't get a score that you needed for the job you initially wanted, the recruiters will not tell you every job that you qualified for. You need to do that research so that way you can say, okay, I got this score. These are the jobs I qualify for. Find out what those jobs are, because the recruiter is going to try to put you in a place that they have short numbers on.
correct. Quotas.
So,
Although I'm going to tell you now, if it trickles down, that's the hope. But I'm hearing they are saying now, at least from the higher ups, no more quotas.
that's what they say. But when you have critically manned career fields,
Right.
they're going to try to get those career fields manned. They have to. You can't have, if you have a career field that only requires 20 people in it, and you have a career field that has 100 people that needs 100 people, you can't have 40 in this career field and only 20 in this one. It's not going to work.
Agreed.
They're gonna put you they're gonna absolutely put you where you need to go, or they need you, I should say.
Right. Right. I think that's great advice. It really is.
Yep.
Um, so alleged doctor, of course, he said the gods have put you where you belong.
Yep.
And he wants to know a little bit about your wife. He says, "Tell us
Yep.
about your wife," which I'm sure he knows, but the rest of us, from what I gleaned about your wife, she's a rock star.
She is.
So,
She's amazing, very supportive. She's supporting me through the 6 months I'm out here. She flew out here last weekend to see me. Um, and even though it was a short visit, she's just been amazing. Absolutely supportive in every way possible, and she just wants to be there mentally. She's my rock. She really
yeah,
is. She's my rock. Ultimately, I feel nothing but like all my stress fades away when I'm around her. She's been there for me for 15 years now, and she has been amazing.
Wonderful. That's awesome. Alleged doctor says, do you suggest vets going to Highland?
So Highland Canine is not going to be for everybody. If you are interested in dog training, I would tell you to do research. As of right now, I think there's only 4 schools in the country that will take your GI benefits for canine training. Highland Canine in North Carolina being one, Tom Rose Canine in Missouri, which is another. There's another one in California, but they don't have student housing. So if you can afford to live there, great. And then there's one that just came up not too long ago. I think it was like a month after I got here that they got approved for funding from the VA to be a GI Bill funded school. I don't know much about them. They're relatively new, but I would tell you to do your research. It's not for everybody. I'm enjoying my time here. I'm learning a lot from the Jason Ferguson, who is the um, founder of Highland Canine and the president of the International Association of Canine Professionals.
Wow.
Um, he is absolutely a wealth of knowledge, and I absolutely appreciate him and his instructor team of Magdalena and Elsa. They're fantastic. I'm learning so much from them. Yes.
Nice. And then why don't you drink water?
So he knows why I don't drink water.
No,
I
he
don't
wants
drink
us all to know why you don't drink
right. I
water.
don't drink water because the fish poo in it. It's a true story.
Well, okay, drinking out of a pond, I see, but would it not be filtered out?
Fish poo in it. I don't drink it.
Okay, all right, that's fair. There's a lot of people that don't drink milk because milk are supposedly just for calves. So, you're not alone.
Yeah, he's just asking that question to be a smart ass,
Well,
because
I
no,
appreciate everybody in the chats tonight. You guys were lighting it up. I love it. And thank you for being here supporting Rebel tonight. And Rebel, if you would hang tight for me, but
sure.
um, and also anybody who is watching this tonight, please, 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 when go out and subscribe, hit that thumbs up button. When we hit 500 subscribers, I have multiple books that are autographed by veterans that I'm going to be doing a giveaway. Now, not just autographed books, we have some other odd and end stuff that we'll be doing. So you must be present to win. And the only way you're going to know when that happens is if you subscribe and if you hit that notification bell. So you got to hit that bell and then you got to hit it again to make sure that it pops up and that you get all of the notifications.
Oh,
So,
Carly, before I go, there is other thing. There is one more thing I would like to
yeah,
bring up.
please.
So I know that me as a veteran, and I've talked to a few other veterans, I had the same problem. If you are a family member of a vet, you have to understand that that family member may, or that veteran may not be able to communicate the same way that he used to. Okay, when I left for the military, I was a young kid. I did not know a whole lot. I didn't see the world. Um, I don't really have communications with any of my family now that my mother has passed, my stepfather has passed. Um, my sister and my brother, they don't talk to me. Their kids, one of them talks to me, Travis. Um, they don't really talk to me because they don't understand me anymore. They don't understand that I've seen the world. They have this and this is truly what I think it is. They have this idealization. I don't know if that's a word. They have this idea of how the world's supposed to be, but they haven't seen it. I've gone out and I've been on every continent in this world, with the exception of Antarctica. I've seen things. I, I can't unsee that stuff anymore.
Right.
And so now I'm coming back trying to put these puzzle pieces into a puzzle that it doesn't work anymore. And they're wondering why I'm getting frustrated with them when they're like, no, that doesn't work like that. The world is like this. How do you know? You haven't been outside of the state. You haven't been outside of this country. You haven't been outside of the eastern side of this country. You know, you haven't seen everything that I have. And so I know that and even Kara Fire, who is my adopted she's my adopted sister. Um, Even me and her hadn't talked for a long time. She felt that I was toxic at one point, and she might not feel that way now, but you have to really understand what that veteran or what that individual is going through. Um, my family has abandoned me. It does not put me in a good headspace. And I would be lying if I said that there isn't days that I just wish the pain would end, my emotional pain would end, and it causes me to think about things that I shouldn't think about. And I'll tell you that to any veteran that's even having those same thoughts in that same dark space, you feel free to give me a message on Facebook. You give me a message on you call me. You do what you. Thank you, thank you, preacher. I know you got my six, brother. Um, you
And
call me.
are
Do
you
whatever you
okay to
have to.
have them contact me and to get your number if they need it?
Absolutely. You
Okay.
have, don't hesitate if any veteran ever calls you and says, "Hey, give me Rebel's number. I think he can help me through this." You don't hesitate. Give them my phone number and just tell them, "Hey, when they text me or call me, I got your number from Carly." And I would be like, "Absolutely. I'll listen to you for as long as you need me to."
I think that's wonderful. And those are such good points all the way around because it's important to feel like you're being heard. And sometimes it's not about trying to understand, it's just listening.
Yeah.
And that's like your first step, right? I mean, I don't pretend to understand what it is veterans have gone through that have been
Right.
deployed. I'm here, and the purpose of this channel is to give our veterans a place to tell their story however they see fit. Um, Again, I don't pry, as you can tell. It's all about you and
Yep.
trying to keep things light, but giving the stepping stones available if you want to take them and use them to go farther. So, yeah, it's
And I do appreciate that about you because, like I said, a lot of my veteran friends they don't understand why their family doesn't want to talk to them, and it was when I put that perspective in there that hey, is could it possibly be this? Let me guess. They said that you're toxic, right? Yeah, how'd you know? Because I've heard the same thing from my family, and my family doesn't want anything to do with me now. And the funny thing is when I first started serving, it was for my family.
right. Yeah. Yeah.
So
But
it's really hard to deal with when you know that when you first start serving, it's for your family, and then your family don't want anything to do with you. It's hard for them. It's definitely hard for a veteran. He looks at it like, well, he or she is looking at it like, what the fuck did I serve for? Oh, I'm sorry.
no, no, you're fine. This is your platform.
Okay, well, what the hell did I serve for? Um, it's definitely hard for them.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. And I think, you were very eloquent when you spoke about it because um, that is definitely something that goes through a lot of veterans' minds and who have come back and, had that same mindset of, what am I doing here? They don't have somebody giving them direction daily. And, especially that first month back.
Yeah.
I think now, again, I am no doctor. I am not a veteran myself, but from everything that I'm understanding and from, my sons and their time, from the first moments that they both um separated out. Well, they were within, let's see, 3 months of each other
Hmm.
when they both got up. But um and that first month, it was just after that first month, down, down he
It's a
went,
downward
the
spiral.
oldest.
Yep.
Yeah, and it because if you don't already have something in place for employment or what have you, your mind keeps going back into your past and what you have done and what you have dealt with and you're missing, just like children thrive on having schedules and the discipline mentally to keep them moving forward. And it's a human thing,
Yep.
right? And to keep us moving, because otherwise, especially when you have been doing it as long as you have, then you get out and you're kind of like a fish out of water, right?
A little bit, yes.
You're trying to, reintegrate back into, a world that has completely changed from what it was before you went in.
Yep.
And mentally, I understand that. And for me, and I've seen it with my own. So
Yeah. And
it makes perfect sense.
it's hard for them to sit there and go, okay, well, the world has changed. How can I change to go into that world? Because for so long it was, this is how the world is. And so it's one of those things where it's like, I mean, I'm sure with your sons as well, that when they came back, that you could notice that they didn't show the same emotions that they used to. They weren't, they weren't as emotionally connected because they get a dark sense of humor. They get, you know,
They do. That is a
yeah,
huge key too, is that dark sense of humor. And um you can recognize that right away
yep,
as a defense mechanism.
it is, yeah, because you've seen the stuff that you've seen stuff that no person should have to see,
Yeah.
and unless you are in a career field where you're seeing that kind of crap on a daily basis, you don't understand it. So when you live in a small rural town and you work at like Wendy's, you're not going to understand our sense of humor. You're not going to understand what it is we're really fighting,
Right.
because I'll tell you right now that the 20 years I was in, and I realized today that my biggest enemy is myself. It's fighting my own thoughts and fighting the negative things that just like, I can't do something. I can't think this way, or I can't achieve this. But not because I'm not mentally or you know emotionally sound to
Right.
do it, but because I'm not physically capable anymore. And then it gets irritating that I can't do that anymore physically because my body is shot, that it starts breaking you down mentally, and then it breaks your soul down. And when you're filled with that much anger, then comes regret. And when you start regretting your service, because I'll tell you, I don't regret my service. I regret doing it for my family, when my family is the ones that abandoned me.
Yeah.
My wife, I have her family. My mother-in-law, my father-in-law, my sister-in-law, they have been great. They have stood through me even when I said some of the stupidest and worst things that you could possibly think of. They're like, that's how we get it. But my own family, who I originally signed up for, when they can't stand me, it hurts. It's like a knife in the it's a pinprick in the heart. And after, you just it's going to end up causing an issue later on, but you can't do anything about it now. So,
Right. You got to get yourself into a place where you can actually
right,
mentally deal with it.
exactly. And you end up finding that you find family members that you choose to have in your life, not family members that you were born into. My
That's right.
brother over there, preacher or alleged doctor, I chose to have him in my life, and he's a fantastic brother. And I'm coming to see you. So,
I think he's excited for that. So, for
uh,
anybody out there, any veterans, and that are out there who are interested in coming on the show and telling their story, my email, you can email me at conversationswithavet@gmail.com. I put that out there in the chats for you. I'd love to have you come out, tell your story. Again, however you see fit. If there's any veterans who are looking for, um, some other veterans to just, chat with, have a conversation. And the same for you, Rebel, is, you now are part of a larger network of people, a larger
Absolutely.
family of veterans at this point in today. Um, and I have met so many across the country and, just going to different events and stuff. So, um, every day, all I can say for, is that, every day you take another step forward and just remember it always looks better the next day. It's
Absolutely.
not as dire the next day. So, everybody hang in there. Again, thank you all again. Like, subscribe, please, please, please hit that thumbs up. Um, I appreciate everybody coming out. And we're going to go ahead and wrap this up. And Rebel, hang tight for me.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Everybody else, y'all have a wonderful week.